Touched it. Hey, everybody, it's Nancy Reyes with For Your Canine.
And Joanne Soike with For Better, For Worse.
And Lisa Bataska with Canine Defined.
I hope all you are well, and we missed last week because we're all crazy busy. So today we have it's an interesting, a bit controversial conversation uh about our dogs and how we live with them and all that stuff. So we wanted to just have a kind of a different thought process on how we uh about them and what we do with them and all that. So um oh
Let's
wait.
vamp. Let's vamp for just a second till we get a couple more people on, because that very first sentence is going to be the bomb dropper. So
Yes. Hey Deb. Hey Sue. It's gonna be an interesting conversation, and it's basically uh, just a different way for us to think about living with our dogs. And it's not good or bad, but it might be uncomfortable for some.
right.
Um, but I think it's just, again, it's not good or bad. It's just a different way to um, look at our how our dogs live with us and all that. Because if you really think about it, and you get um, and more people are kind of looking at that. So anyway, so today's topic is going to be um, our dogs and choice. Do our dogs really have a lot of agency in their lives, and they have a lot of choices, right? And for all intents and purposes, our dogs are, captive animals, right? And I know we don't think of them that way because we think captive animals, we think of animals in the zoo and things like that. But to be truthful, our dogs don't have a lot of agency in their lives, right? And depending on who they live with and where they live, it's a different lifestyle, right? So, which I think brings to light some major behavior problems we're having, because we're trying to have them accommodate to live in our world, and they, depending on the breed and what they were supposed to be doing with their lives, it's difficult to then fit into our situation, right? Wouldn't you say that?
Yep. Yep. And it can come down to even the simplest things that you don't even think about, right? Not even sometimes behavior problems, something as simple as natural behaviors like sniffing or digging or barking or simple stuff.
Right.
Even just going to the bathroom, right? We
Right.
have to let them out. Like that's a basic need. And we
Right.
don't consider those things as being an issue. In a way, as we're potty training, it's more of an inconvenience until the puppy actually learns how to go potty, and then everyone's happy. So, but yeah,
Yes, I know I am when they learn it.
Yeah.
So
So,
go
oh,
ahead, Joanne. Go ahead,
well,
Joanne.
so I was going to say, I was having a conversation with a new group of people. They're looking to start a new program with me and my training center, and we were having dinner, just random dinner. And I kind of dropped on them, right? Because we were talking about dogs and their freedom of choice, and we originally started talking about touch, right? And I said dogs should always have a choice of whether or not people touch them. And then it turned into, right, when you think about this, Nancy said captive animals. I used a worse term, which was prisoners, right?
yep.
But truly, when you think about people in jail or prison, right? They get told when they're going to eat, when they're going to go to the bathroom, when they get exercise, when they can, have free movement versus, be in the crate, out of the X pen, through the gate, whatever it is, right? All of that is decided by us. And I said, as like talking with other dog people, we love our dogs, right? We take them to sports and we spend tons of money and we get them the best toys and we hope to provide enrichment. And even still, when you think about it, think about just last week. How many times did you tell your dog to be quiet, give me a minute, um not right now, right? All of those tiny little things that just part of our world, right? Like, I'm making the money to feed you and give you all the things. Just give me a second. And even I do it, right? Where I'm like, I hear you. Give me just a second. Or you know, a dog wakes you up in the middle of the night. Shut up, right? Like, you know, until you hear like, oh, I really gotta go, right? And then you get up out of your cozy bed. So it's hard sometimes when we think about things in those terms of like, God, can you imagine living our dog's life? And that's with people who love them. Imagine someone who just has a dog, right? And doesn't take it outside the house, and doesn't get new toys, and it doesn't get different kinds of treats or different kinds of food or enrichment or anything, right? It's just, I wake up and I wait to go outside and I wait for my food and I be quiet and I lay on the floor and I do all the things, right? Day in and day out. When you think about that, it really does sound a lot like prison.
Yeah. You know, but to be fair, our dogs have, many of our dogs have have adapted to our life and living with us in this way. So to them, you know, it's you know, they don't have a different, you know,
They
outlook
don't
on
know
it.
any different because they've not had any other exposure experience compared to
Right.
what we have.
Right. Because a lot of the world's dog population are street dogs in
Yep.
different countries, as we've discussed before. So they do have the freedom to come and go and mate and go to the bathroom and eat and all that. They are free to do that, even though we think, um, and there's a lot of them that survive just fine doing that. Obviously, that does not mean we're going to turn our dogs loose on the street. That's what's going to happen. That doesn't mean that at all. It's just that I think it's something to think about, when you want to give them some time to have more, you know, some free time or autonomy where they can be free to choose sometimes, right? Because you know, some of us get pretty, don't do this, don't do that, and but we do that to our children too. So I've also seen that, that where children don't get a chance to, the freedom to be creative or think. Tango, stop it. Uh,
Like Nat.
he's my poor cat. He's just, and the cat is like really letting him know not to do that, and he's like, I'm still gonna do it anyway. So see how he's free to choose, but
Yes.
by harassing the other animal in my house. So there you go. But
The one with claws will set him straight.
that's right. That's what I'm worried about. His handsome face is all he's got going on. So you know, gotta make sure he doesn't get that all ruined. Anyway, but you know, think about that. You know, some of the, you know, the games we play. Not that they don't enjoy it, and not that they don't love it. It's still, you know, they didn't choose to do it. It's just nice when what we like is something that they like, and they just, you know, and they enjoy doing it, right? But depending on what the sport is, nosework, and that's why I think so many dogs love it so much, because they are free to do what they naturally do with that. Even though we have to drive them there and all that, but they for that time they really get to enjoy, to be just do their thing. You know what I mean?
Yep. I think too, like dogs, like, and I think this is important for them too. Like a lot of times, and stuff that people want to work on is off leash, getting the dogs to respond to you off leash and so forth. And you have to provide a guide, right? It's no different than when you're growing a child. There's some same similarities in terms of providing guidance for them so they don't hurt themselves, or if they don't have a good recall. I mean, there's some safety components to it as well. But you know, giving them opportunities to be a dog is really important, I think. You know, even if you want to play a sport or whatever you want to do with a dog is fine, but they also need that, like going back to the resilience rainbow, for for example, is completing the stress cycle, right? Having time to unhook, and detach from everything going on. Because I don't know about you, but if I was constantly, somebody's dictating to me what to do, I'm not okay with that. And I'm not okay with a lot of touching. I'm sorry, I'm just not. So I wouldn't make a really good dog, I don't think. But
We need to
but
get you a Bishla. That's what we need to get you.
no, too much touching. I mean, I
Um,
don't get me wrong, I love it, but it's not. I don't want to wear you, right? So,
right.
and everybody's different, and that's not good or bad. But I also think it's really important to have the dogs have opportunities, and there are things that you can do at home for that, right? So, you know, and I know we'll probably get into some of that before we kind of.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's true, right? It's like they need that time. If you do, especially if you do dog sports and all that, and they're competition dogs, it's nice for because I think I think especially in agility, you can't, they really limit what they can do, so they only play that sport and they play it in such a way. So they never get away from the only time they get to play is only to do agility. They don't get to do any other dog things, right? They don't get to decompress and be dogs and do whatever. I mean, that's some people's philosophy on that, right? I think that you're right. We do these structured competitions, but I really think that they also need to have those that downtime to be dogs and do whatever dogs do, right?
Yeah. I mean, and even just something as simple as going for a walk, right? I think the world is starting to change. You see a lot of the new studies coming out, and you see a lot of the what do they always call? I always forget the word. Oh, snifaris, right? Let your dog go on a snifari when you go for a walk, right? And that's kind of part of my dog doesn't get to be out in the world, not attached to me.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're out there, they're trying to, explore and read the newspaper and see all the things out there. And if I'm just hurry about my speed walk, right? Come on, let's go. For exercise, and it's not that that's not okay, but they should also have a chance to see what's outside the walls of their fence or the length of their tie out or whatever it is. And even in sports, right? I think those of us who do sport, well, most of us, right? Let's go with all the good people, right? I mean, the people who are looking for good to share time with their dogs. We do the sports because we think our dogs like them, we like them, and it's a fun game, right? But imagine the last time you were doing nose work or agility or obedience, and your dog was like, "Oh my God, hold on 1 second. I don't know who was here before me, but I really need to check this out." And how long is it for you as a human before you're like, "Come on, stop that. Let's keep going. We got things to do," right? Where the dog is like, "Can I get a second?" But I think sometimes we focus on the game from a human perspective long more than we do from that dog's perspective. And dogs that are really well versed in those games, usually it's 5 seconds or less, and they're like, "Thanks a bunch, moving on, we got things to do."
Right.
And I don't know what that is from a human perspective, right? I don't like to think it's control sometimes, but not for the most of us, right? I think it's just that's not the game. That's
Right.
not the
Goal
game. That's the
orientation.
game. Yeah,
Goal
right.
orientation. Right.
And it's so hard because you don't even think about it in the moment until potentially the dog puts up some resistance, like, right, where they're like, "No, you give me a minute," and they pull back on that leash or whatever it is they do, and you're like, "What is wrong with you?" Nothing.
Well, I also think too, like if we actually learn to read our own dogs, and every dog is different, like each dog varies from the next. And I know, like, and I talk about it. We talked about it last time we were on about Fender, and Fender I wanted to do agility with, and I put so much pressure on it that he's like, I can't, and then physically it became he couldn't, and so I got frustrated, right? And so I had to let that go. I'm like, all right, quit being a jerk. He doesn't wanna, so let's not force him. So I think, and I love agility, and he loved all the other stuff, right? It was just not his thing. And in the end, I pushed so hard, honestly, and this is where I'm like, you got to be careful because they'll tell you what's okay or not. Zach, when I was doing it, remember Nancy Zachary? When I do agility, he was a little Pomeranian. And I remember I had a massage at the time by Ron, and I was like, he was like, his knees, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. And at that time, it didn't dawn on me. And then we went into a CPE trial, and he was spinning in front of the jump. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I think, yeah, this isn't right. Because he never did that before. And I think like sitting there understanding who your dog is, and why they're blowing you off, if they're blowing you off intentionally because you're being a jerk about it, or why are they doing those things. So learning how to read your dog to be able to determine, is this what you want, and the ability to give you that option of choice, you know.
Right. And also why, yeah, right. And try to figure out why they don't want to do it. A lot of times it's not that they just don't want to. It's basically there's usually a pretty good reason for it and why they don't want to. And so that's why giving them, for those, especially for those of us who do performance, it's good to give them time to be dogs and just do dog stuff and be, and even though some of the dog stuff is, like my beloved pointy-eared canine companion that likes to sniff butts and and all that, that's normal dog behavior, but I'm not a fan. So
Yeah, and I would say even take it a step farther. Non-sports stuff, right? I had a private on Friday, and these people were the sweetest older couple. They take hospice cases, like they take the cases that are gonna end up in a shelter or getting euthanized because like their health cases are older or something like that, right? People don't want to deal with the dogs anymore. So they had taken on this little mix, and he was maybe 10, 12-pound dog, tiny little thing, and he was presented as being aggressive and guarding the couch, right? And so I think as trainers who deal with dog behavior, that's what was said at the vet office, right? So the vets are like, oh, he's resource guarding the people, he's resource guarding the couch, whatever that story is, right? So what do we do as trainers? We start to peel the onion. Okay, so he's growling on the couch and he's snipping at you, right? Snapping, air snapping, whatever. When does it happen? How many times? Well, it happened twice. Oh, okay. Do you sit on the couch all the time? Oh, yeah. Will he let you sit next to him normally? Yup. Okay, so when did this happen? Like, what was going on? Was he sleeping? Yes. He was sleeping and I was going to move him. Oh, okay. So, right. So as again, you're peeling away all the layers to the onion. Well, what the story came out was the dog only snapped twice and he was pretty, serious about the snapping, the air snapping, never connected, never bit anybody. But when the dogs presented, right, I noticed right away, the dog walked like a Mr. Potato Head, right? Like one leg's over here and one leg's over here. And he just kind of came in like that. And you notice kind of like, oh gosh, he looks like he might be painful. The dog was 9 years old. And so I said, let's work on some other things. What if you ask him to get up? Can he do that? And the guy had just had a surgery. And I said, what if I, for you, said, we're going, let's get up right now. And you said, give me a minute. And I said, nope, now. And I pulled you up. What would you do? Right? You might get so mad you'd yell at me. You might even hit me if I hurt you that much. Mm-hmm. And, by the end of the 20 minutes of that conversation, he goes, I have a completely different perspective on what happened.
Yep.
So something as simple as I told the vet one thing, when you start to dissect the story,
right.
It was actually, the dog was saying, please, can I just get a minute? It's really ouchy when I wake up. I don't like it when you pick me up. If you give me just a moment so I can stretch my bones, right? And get all those muscles moving again, I'm okay. So something as simple as that, which, let's be fair, that methodology in the wrong trainer's hands, don't let him get away with that.
Yep.
Need to correct that. He's not allowed to guard that couch. So what do? We start picking up the dog. We start applying corrections. The dog's going to get worse because it still hurts. The dog's getting euthanized for the most part, right?
Right.
All because of a simple, can I get a second, maybe 10, right, to stretch my bones, and I can do anything you ask me to, just like I need a minute.
So we do along those same ideas. I think one thing I want to say is that I think it's different, right? When you've been doing it for a while, you ask lots of questions to try and figure out why. Because I think to us, the why is more important than the how. And I think that that's missing a lot in trainers. It's addressing the how and who cares why. But I don't think you can get fully consistent behavior if you don't understand the why.
Correct.
Right.
And so that was it that I wanted to say. But I also wanted to say, so we do day school, and so there's a dog. He's been coming since he was 5 months old. He always kind of moved odd, like not right. And so, but he got worse as he got older. And and then he started refusing. He didn't really want to do stuff. He'd always be sniffing and everything. I'm like, we'll just let you sniff, not a lot of pressure, because we suspected something was going on. So finally, mom was able to get him in, have him checked out. Push comes to shove, the worst. He's a year old and he has hip dysplasia and knee problems.
Oh,
And that's just checking the rear part of him, not the front part, because I suspect there's something else. We kind of think something there. So, she's presented now with different options for him. Well, what do I do? I'm like, let him be a dog. Let him enjoy the life he has. Who cares about anything else? Because it doesn't matter at this point. And she's heartbroken, and we are too, because he's a lovely guy. And so lots of times, we'd ask him to sit, and so it makes sense why he's like, I can't, or I'll avoid it and stuff like that. And I think those are things along the lines, like, again, with a person with a different mindset might have been more pushing with this dog and injured him severely. And he trusts us a lot. So, we're doing what we can. And then there was another dog who when he'd sit and stuff, all of a sudden he started sitting and checking his right side, checking his right side. Yeah, he's got hip dysplasia on that side. And he was a show dog, and she brought him so that we can take a look at him, just figure out why and what's with the handling. And every single time you'd go to run down that side, he'd turn. And then finally one time he was, stuff presents and you're like, what is this? Why are you doing this? Okay. And it's a lot of not pushing them and helping them do things, giving them the choice, right? And I think that's the other thing. Choice doesn't have to be, do you want to play this game or not? Choice could be, hey, do you feel like sitting today, or whatever, depending on what that situation is for that individual dog. So, for this particular dog, his choice is to lay on the couch and maybe walk around and sniff out the world. He's a terrier mix, and he likes to be with the littles. He likes the little dogs. It makes him feel, his name's Biggie. He's a really cool guy. And he's just like, he's a sweetheart. So we're going to do whatever we can to help him stay safe and comfortable, right? Because you can really damage relationships when you don't pay attention or hear the dog.
right.
You can really make a problem.
And again, the choice also is some days they might want to play with their dog a doggy friend they've been playing with for years, and today might not be feeling so great, or might not want to, or may not feel like it, and sometimes we tend to push it. Come on, let's do it, and the dogs aren't feeling like they want to play. Or this is the other freedom of choice thing. Some dogs aren't super doggy. They like people more, and
Right.
people seem to think that we have to have dog friends. No, they don't. They
Right.
absolutely, they don't need any doggy friends. They can be just fine having people situations, right? So it's a very interesting, like, they think, like, the dogs usually will tell you what they need. They don't. Not every dog needs doggy friends, and then
Nope.
because that is the biggest thing we get, right? Dogs that, oh, I don't, he's not great with other dogs or whatever. It's okay. He doesn't. It's all right if he's not okay with other dogs. Is he trying to kill them or hurt them or anything? No. Then it's okay. He doesn't need. There's no need for. He doesn't want to make friends. And there's no different. It's no different than people. My husband is not a super social guy. If I said, come on, every Friday we're going to a party until you get used to having all these people and friends around, he would not be happy with that, because he would not like that. That would not be. That goes against everything, of who he is. And so who am I to make him do that, right? Because he doesn't, not interested in doing that. So it's one of
Yep.
those things you want to think about, that, like, in everyday stuff, like, why that may not feel like it today. And sometimes we can figure out the why, and sometimes we can't. And it's okay, let's try it again next time.
And I'll even go so far as to talk into some like behavior issues stuff too, right? It was a few weeks ago. I think I had given out bully sticks or something, which are not like a rare occurrence. I don't do them all the time, but it's not rare. Like it's not a,
Right.
oh my God, we only get these every 6 months, coveted, super duper high value item. And Roscoe had it and he was on the couch. And for whatever reason, I was up, I was doing something, and I walked by the couch and he had this overwhelming like response of like covered it and this really big growl. Now the dog does have some resource guarding issues, right? I've worked through a lot of it with me. He doesn't normally have it with me anymore, but I also don't make a big deal out of it, right? I can take anything from him. And for whatever reason, that day he was like, I'm feeling really protective of this bully stick. I don't want you to have it. I don't want anyone to have it. And so that was a moment where I could have gotten really crappy with him, right? I could have gotten very corrective and said, we don't do that. That is, you're not having that. You're not doing those things. And I didn't. And he was having huge feelings about it. And I said, listen, I'm not going to take it, but you also don't get to do that. You need to calm down. And I sat next to him on the couch, right? I didn't look at him. I didn't try and take it. I didn't try and pet him. I just calmly sat next to him on the couch and he was, oh, okay. All right. And within, I don't know, 90 seconds, the dog didn't care that I was there anymore, right? That could have easily turned into a bite. I mean, easily, right? But because I said, listen, I'm not going to take it. I understand and I hear you. For whatever reason, that is yours, right? And you're feeling very protective of it. I didn't feel the need to challenge that. It wasn't something I needed to fix in that moment. Like, do I trust him around kids? No, not at all. But that's something I know. I don't put him in those situations. So,
right. And this is a good Supor put a really good post. Bird and squirrel chasing become more important to the pup, to her dog, when they want to do something else, like do some training or maybe some nose work in the yard. And she's like, no sense in pushing what we plan. Let them play, and then you can do it later. So it's kind of nice to be able to kind of roll with it and say, oh. And I know it's hard for me, it's hard because it's like, I only have this time, so you have to do this time.
Yeah. It is tough, right? Because we have such limited time, and then I want to accomplish stuff. But I also think you got to let it go. Everybody develops at different rates in various moments. And I'm not at my best moment majority of the time. I'm trying to just get through, right? But, and I think we're just in a hurry. And that's why I think, that song from, what's it called? It's the Disney song, the guy with the trees. Which one?
I don't know. Is that Groot?
No, it's not Groot. But they sing this song called Let It Go, Let It Grow.
Oh, that's Frozen.
No,
Frozen.
It wasn't Frozen. It was the one where they had the trees, and maybe somebody can bring that up. It was the guy the Lorax. That was it.
Oh.
So the Lorax, and remember at the end how they were trying to plant trees and stuff and let it grow. It's like, yeah, it takes time for them to develop. It takes time for everything to grow. So you have to give it that moment while especially when they're young and developing. And then the next thing is, then you can start to try other things. But you got to get through that teenage time, because that's a hard one.
It is. Oof.
I know.
So again, it's hard. It's hard to think of our lovely little dogs as captive animals, but so that's why when every once in a while, don't get so. I guess the reason we wanted to bring it up, don't get so caught up in doing the things and all the stuff with the dog. Sometimes just letting them be a dog is enough, right? Or they need that decompression to be able to have some autonomy and freedom and run and do other things, right? Because it's hard. It's hard when they don't have that freedom to be able to do all of that and be able to, have some agency on stuff. And I think, to be honest, for some degrees, that restriction for some of the dogs causes some of the behavior issues that we see at times, because they're not able to have some agency or freedom to choose, or nobody can understand why this is not okay for them. right? It might be okay for this dog, but not this dog, right? So
So I have a just to kind of talk right now. I have a little 4 month old, 4+ month old chocolate lab, and so yes, it's exciting. Um, and so we're working on stuff. So part of it is everything's so exciting. So we're helping him bring a little bit down, and that's going to take time, right? It's not something that a board and train is going to completely eliminate. That he'll never do that again. And anybody who promises you otherwise is using a different form of training. But in his case, right, I'm like, I let him out. He gets all the chews and stuff like that. He gets overstimulated with the dog. So he's always in their faces, and all the herding breeds hate it. I know you're shocked. It's in the face, right? I love you. I love you. And, and the dogs are like, okay, is he coming out? Even the Papillon's like, yeah, no, I don't want to talk to him. And he's Mr. Social. He's like, that's too much. So we go out, we work on stuff. When I work him, he is separate. I put my dogs away. So everybody's put up while he's kind of working on being a dog in the home, because there is no other dogs in his home. It's just the family, and they have small children. So of course he's grabbing things out of the hands and stuff like that. So we're setting behaviors. He barges outdoors, the typical pushy guy, and truly harmless, truly sweet, and just a big goofball. But there are things that we do. So I help with the guide. We help with the guidance, right? Okay, I don't want you doing this, but here's something you could do instead. So we do topples, we do various chews so that he can hang out in the household. I have the dogs drag a leash in case I'm like, okay, that's enough, or I've given you a little too much freedom, right? And I think, you're still quote unquote in control, but I think there is a difference with goal orientation, because my end goal is for him to obviously grow up into a nice pup that, and he will, because that's just, but by the grace of God, they do anyway, for the most part, despite us. But, the goal is guidance. And I think the motive is what defines whether or not you're quote unquote in control or not, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, my goal is to get him to stop jumping. If I said I could totally do that in 2 weeks, I'd be lying. Like, you can't,
I know.
that's a
It
process.
takes a long time.
Yeah, it's a process, right? And I said I can make it better, try to get him to make better choices. And I think that's the other thing. You can still accomplish or give dogs choices. I like things more choice based for the dogs, so that they have that, they realize, oh, I can make this choice, and look what happens, all the good stuff for me, And I think, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, you're such a hardhead, right? With this puppy or any of my dogs. And he's 4 months old. I mean, he's still learning, but he's distracted. He'll do something and they're like, oh, what is this? And I'm like, okay, roll with it, because you got nothing else with it, right? But I think those are things you have to think about. And granted, this is a 4-month-old puppy. My requirements and things I might do with an older dog's a little bit different depending on the situation and their understanding, because this guy doesn't know what's the right answer. Like, once they have an idea of the right answer, then you can help with that piece of it. But you're always still guiding, not necessarily dictating. And I think that's the difference with the underlying motive of allowing your dog choice.
Mm-hmm. And training, by the definition, as we set up the environment so the dogs make the right choice, but they're not really making the right choice. They're being, manipulated into making what we want, right?
Right. It is true.
Right. And so we have to kind of know that and be good with that, right? And understand that they're doing okay, but we're kind of manipulating them. But every once in a while, depending on the opportunities, it's good. Do you care if they do a sit or a down before they go, or a sit or a stand or whatever before they go out the door? Throw a choice there. They can, as long as they wait, they can do whatever they want, right? As long as they're doing something else, so that they have some of that autonomy. And not to say that some dogs don't want too much, shouldn't have too much choice, because bad things will happen. Yeah. Yeah, well, because that's true. That's why some children, right? You have to supervise some children more than others. Same with dogs. Some will require a little bit more
guidance.
Guidance than others, right? And some little more, not manipulating, but getting them to make the better choices um, along the way as they grow up and stuff. And their choices will change as they get older as well. So being aware of that too is very helpful.
And I think sometimes, I mean, I don't know if you guys, so sometimes even just giving them a choice, and they've done this in like some of the cognition labs where they have a few different options for the dog. And free work is something else where you can put different things out in the environment and then just let your dog choose to do whatever they want to do. But different things, sight, sounds, taste, touch, all that stuff, smell, different things out in the environment. And that, believe it or not, is pretty cool. I mean, can you imagine going into a place and you have all this stuff? Like, I have my cheesecake, I have my steak, I have all this stuff around, and I'm like, oh, how amazing. I get to choose what I want to do first versus, no, come do this, right?
What's that, free work?
Free work. Yeah, it's basically, I forgot what it's just basically where you put multiple things out. So Kim Brophy
It
does
reminded me of as soon as you said it.
what?
Tom Hanks in Big when they went to FAO Schwartz.
Yeah.
Right? Like, here's the toy store. Go have at it.
Yes, that's right. but it's true, right? And it doesn't matter. You can put novel toys out there, novel things that they haven't seen. Like, oh, this is, and just sit and observe them and see what they like, right? Because that also can help you in training in terms of reinforcement and so forth. Remember this thing? Oh, I got it. So it also helps your relationship because you can figure that out. But Kim Brophy does it. She wrote the book Meet Your Dog. She has the LEGS program out there, the Family Dog Mediator, and she has a behavior center. And basically, when she brings in a client and they have a dog, they're like, take it off leash and let them do whatever. And there's a bunch of stuff in the room, obviously depending on the dog. But these are for dogs that are known, right? For our dogs, we can totally do stuff like that. There are things that I've done in the yard where we just put different things. So I had access to a frozen pork hock, and we just put it out in the environment to see who noticed. Like for the day school dogs, I wonder if they care. One tried to pee on it. The other one's like, that's interesting, but I don't care. I mean, all the fun stuff, right? But it's just interesting to learn more about the individuals. So, one of the trainers, her dad has labs and has a frozen wing, right? And so we put it out there, and it was just interesting. And, and there are times too, like I'll take kibble or whatever and just throw it in the yard. Now, granted, I don't have any resource guarders, and I wouldn't recommend doing that with any dogs that resource guard food, but I can do that and let my dogs out. So instead of them running and chasing each other and getting stupid, I'm like, have at it. So they go out there and they're like, oh, I smell food. So they start searching and stuff. But the scatter stuff like that is cool. There's different things that you can do with them. A friend of mine she takes the dog's food in a form of, obviously scent work regardless. She'll take her food and split it up in these small little bowls and put them all around the house for the dog to search. And that's how she eats. And she loves it. And then she's like, and comes back and lays down.
I did one once with a big giant pile of toys with some food hidden in the pile of toys. Like, who's interested in the toys and who's going to dig through the toys to get the food?
Right.
It's just cool how the choices that they made.
Yeah. Right. And you could, the thing is, like, if you have multiple dogs or not, or a group of you get together and do this, it'd be kind of cool, right? To see, I wonder, and almost kind of place bets. I think he's going to do this. And, just for fun and giggles, right? Because we get so serious about stuff. It's, it shouldn't be that. Life's hard enough as it is. Let's lose light.
I can definitely tell you Jive would be,
Food.
It would be food. She would go through that pile of she would go to that pile and
Well, and the other thing I did, so on the yard, I took the tea bags, right, for different scents, and I took different scents. I didn't necessarily use any odors per se that are competitive odors. But anyway, so we spread it out, different smells and so forth. It was interesting. We found some, some poor soul passed away, lost some hair, rabbit fur, found some in the thing, and then put it in that little ball, and then put it along the fence line, and just to see what the dogs would do. It was really cool. Most of the dogs gravitated towards the bunny smells, which was interesting. So, and then we had some other scent, different scent, but it was fun.
Yeah. Speaking of bunnies and giving your dog free choice, I don't know. This was for all the scent work people out there. I have to tell this story because I didn't care if he helped me or not, but I wanted to see if he would. So 2 weeks ago, last week, whatever it was. So Roscoe in the yard, I hear the noise of and I look, and of course he's got legs and a head hanging out of his mouth. So he had a baby bunny. And so I'm like, drop it. And he's like, no, like, look what I found. So again, in that moment, right, what did I first do? Like, I need you to drop it. And so he was like, no, not doing that. So I pulled up on his collar a little bit, right, to kind of like, maybe if I can put a little pressure, you'll open your mouth. And all of a sudden I hear, I'm like, okay, sorry. Right. So I guided him by the collar into the house because I knew if I let him have it, he would drop it to investigate it. Right.
Right.
Sure enough, he comes in, he drops it. I scooped up the baby bunny. And now I have no idea where the nest is. No idea. Right. So I said, Noah, my Vishla, like, come outside with me. He goes, okay. Right. And I have this tiny little bunny in my hands. And because we've done nose work, I had no idea if this was going to work or not. I put it up to his nose and I said, do you smell this? Do you smell it? And he's like, oh, wow, what do you have? And I said, right. I said, go find more. He's like, what? And I was like, find more. And he goes, okay. And that dog for 5 minutes bounded around my yard, right? In all the nooks and crannies. And baby rabbits have not very much scent at all, right? And finally his tongue's hanging out. And he jams his head under a patio table and he's like, it's right here. Sure enough, the bunny nest. Right? And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, talk about communication between dog and like, that just told me so many things. How much does that dog like scent work and like to play it with me? Right? A ton. For him to understand a random command that I've used in a different context, get it, do the thing, right? Anyway, I brought the dog inside and fed him a turkey sandwich. He deserved it. But
Yep.
I just thought, what would have happened? Nothing. If he hadn't have found it, I would have tried to put the baby somewhere and like gave it the best chance I could. He didn't have to do that for me. But, you know, the communication and the trust and the bond that we have together, he's like, got it, Mom. It was just amazing, I thought.
That's
So-
cool.
That is pretty. He goes, I'm going to save the bunnies.
He did.
That's Noah. Again, he would need somebody to help, how can I say? It would help somebody would have to feed Noah because he would actually might die in the wild, but
He just find it. He's reliving the prehistoric domestication of dogs, right? He just find a human to feed him.
Right.
he'd be like, oh, I guess he's supposed to,
I'll find you a bird if you feed me.
yeah, right.
I'll tell you where it
Totally.
is.
Totally. Hey,
Yeah.
I was looking up. Hey, Lisa, I was looking up free work.
Mhm.
So my question: a lot of the people that I see doing the free work on YouTube, they put food on everything. Is that part of the deal?
I wouldn't. I don't know if it's, and I would probably question why they're doing it. If they're doing it more out of confidence, right? You're afraid of something. Can you approach it for food? Although I question that even that technique.
Well, yeah, because everybody seems to have like a lot of food.
I
If-
would, and when I've done it, I've had different things, different surfaces, different smells, stuff like that. You know, almost like enrichment, but at their pace, so to speak, what they could wanted to do. You know, you could do things like fill a pool with a baby pool with the bottles or balls and throw some kibble in, you know, and watch the dogs and see who can do it, who can't. I mean, it's their choice, right? But free work, I forgot who does that.
Sarah Fisher.
Thank you. So I don't know if that's, honestly, I don't know if that's exactly the purpose of it.
Yeah, it seems what I'm because here I'll let's see if I
Although I could see that would be interesting if you did, like, say, for instance, nose work, right? To put those random food smells out to see what drew the dog in for interest. If you were going to pick a favorite treat, right?
Oh, apparently, yes. Ace, or yeah, Ace, animal centered, whatever.
So here, I'll pull it up, you guys. So, this is the cool thing about this. It's very, you can really see like how you can set it up very inexpensively. So this is one setup. They have a lot of different stuff, but a lot of it they put food and maybe other tasty things in there.
Mm-hmm.
So you see the dog, the dog
So it
was,
could be confidence building is what I think the purpose of it. But I also think that, because what if you get a dog who doesn't want food? Then you have to use something. You have to, think outside the box and try to use things that are important to the dog.
yeah. Because I thought that was interesting that
Yeah.
that was interesting that they, the few people I saw, they were really, they use a lot of food. So like here, I'll pull up another one. This one, again, another. I was just curious about, do you have to use food all the time? Because you're right. How about a dog that's not interested in food,
Mm-hmm.
right? 'Cause this one's, see, but the point is here, like, I like the fact that they put different things, up, and it's just a variety of things so you don't have to spend, this ton of money or anything. You just set it up and they can just go in there and do their own thing. And if you have dogs that don't resource guard, this would be a nice activity for multiple dogs if they get along really well. Just kind of having them foraging and looking around. But yeah, I just was just curious because almost all the demo videos that it was very.
So for the free work, it looks like it's more confidence building, right? But honestly, it doesn't matter. It could be different smells, right? They do it with the enrichment, the boxes for enrichment for the shelter dogs, right? Where they put different stuff in it, a swipe of a smell, a swipe of this smell on either side of the box, and be like, have at it.
Yeah.
So I think you can totally get creative and do whatever. They're using it's more fearful dogs and giving
Mhm.
them the autonomy or the agency to move about.
Yeah, and he goes, "I'm not stepping in that." Oh,
He goes, maybe this one.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so you could see the value of that, right?
Mhm.
And they can just go in there and
That's a nice indoor game to mess around with, right? Or indoor stuff. But, and I've done that. We've done that like on rainy days. I'll pull out different puzzles and see who's more persistent, and it's funny when they're young, they're like, I can't jump in that pool. Although my Papillon went running and jumping into it. And he's like, holy smokes, I'm in the pool. And then, you know, you just have to watch the kamikaze-ness of the dogs depending on who they are.
Yeah. No, I thought I just wanted to give people, it could be set up pretty easily, especially for those folks who have young dogs, puppies, and it wouldn't be a terrible idea to do it with my two young ones, 'cause it give them something to do and some freedom to do that. So I thought that was good. Yeah, Lupa would be food, and Divot would definitely be a ball or frisbee. Well, that's what I mean, and that's why I was wondering, because I'm looking at that, going, oh, maybe maybe how about a dog that doesn't like, that's not a foodie dog, right? That they prefer.
Sure.
So I thought that's what I
Or
was.
toy or scent.
Yeah, Sonny would have eaten the bunny. Yeah, well, a lot of dogs would have eaten the bunny. That's why Noah's special. Because that is 100% true. That's why I said he would die in the wild, because somebody would have to feed him, put that bunny in a bowl so he could eat it. he was a bunny saver this time. So.
He's just not hungry enough to forage himself. That's all.
Yeah. So, he's got people for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so again, this is we debated about doing this topic because you don't want to think of your dogs as I use captive, Joanne uses prisoner, but whatever. It's hard to think of it that way, but it's just something to put in to just think about. So if try to give that your pet some autonomy, some freedom to choose, and some control. Even though our dogs are super adaptive and they've adapted to living with our lifestyle, still giving them the opportunity. That's why I'm such a big fan of off leash, because they get to choose where they're gonna be with, they get to pick, and it feels good when they pick you instead of always being on that control that you have to be with me, instead of when they get to pick it, right?
Remember when we went to many years ago when there was the Border Collie picnic was up in, what was
Oh,
it,
yes, yes,
right? You had Cha Cha, and it was so interesting, right? Because we work so hard on the relationship, and every dog is different, of course. And I had Lucas and Lacey and Fling. And I remember, right? And there was a bunch of border collies. It was an off leash park. It was all fenced in. I don't know how many acres, 3 acres or more, whatever. There was a pond and everything. And so we worked so hard on our dogs following us and checking in with us and stuff like that. So we're sitting there, we let them go play, and there's tennis balls everywhere, right? But our dogs are like, well, that's okay, border collies. We're going to do something else. They just ran around, played, whatever. And remember, we moved. And
yeah.
then they came back to the same place, and they're like, where did they go? It was so funny. We were sitting there watching them and laughing. And then finally they found us. And then they started. It was hilarious. It was so funny. I thought that was so interesting, right? Like,
Yes,
when given the choice, where do your dogs go in a whole place like that?
right, right,
And of course, you have to carefully orchestrate it because not all dogs get along.
right.
But the other really cool benefit is the other cool thing you can try to do is look for sniff spots too. Take them to different places. Let them have an opportunity to check out different smells. I think sniff spots are really cool. Like we had a dog that came. I don't know what he is, but he almost looks. His head width is huge, but he's a border collie. He almost looks like a pit border collie because of the big head, but he's got the border collie markings and the long hair. And more that I look at him, I think he's kind of like a livestock guardian mix because holy smokes, he orients out. It's very interesting. So he came here and he sniffed till his heart's content because dad wasn't sure how to respond around dogs. And I have dogs that we can test with, whatever. And he had no interest. He just wanted to check the borderline all across the whole thing. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a livestock guardian. But it was very interesting. But give him another opportunity of different places to sniff off leash if you can. Right? That's pure autonomy as well.
Yeah, so that's one of the things. It's like, I know you don't want to think of your dogs that way, but I think just carrying that little piece of information always with you, and being able to give them a choice of something, of different things as that you go through your journey with them, is kind of a nice thing, right? Where they have that ability to choose. And it's always nice, like that border collie picnic. Yeah, our dogs wanted to be with us because we worked so hard on that. And so, but it's nice when they're free to choose what they do choose, right? It just gives you so much insight and information to who they are as dogs and who as our companions. So always, whenever possible. Now, I'm just gonna go back to this part because I want to be clear. That doesn't mean that you're just going to let them do whatever they want.
Right.
Because we're not talking about being permissive.
Right.
We're giving them, for certain things, because that's a problem that we see very often as well. We have people that allow their dogs to do whatever they want because that's what he likes. Well, sometimes somebody has to be the grown up, right? It's just when you're able to give them that freedom and autonomy, and you're able to make some choices to just bring it in and remember to do that. Again, it's not saying that you're going to be permissive and you're just going to, well, he chose that. No, well, sometimes you can't choose that. Sometimes that's not an option for you, right? But that happens to us too, right? We can't always do whatever the hell we want. Sometimes we have to think about the consequences to those things or the people around us before we make some decisions. So, that's something I just wanted to remind you guys of that. That doesn't mean you can just let them do whatever because you feel bad because they're captive or whatever. Don't do that.
Don't let them drag you up to another dog just because they want to say hi. That's what she's referring to. But the other thing I do want to say too is like some people take everything to an extreme.
Yes.
So we're talking about moderation, right? So it's like within reason. And one thing that comes to mind is like, well, they chose not to go to the vet. Well, I don't chose to go to the doctor either, but
Right.
it happens.
Yeah.
So,
You have to do it.
I mean, there's some things we can't, right? Like, sorry, you got to get your nails cut, or sorry, you have to go get a shot, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Right. So just want it to be, yeah, moderation and balance.
Mhm.
And I hate that the word balance has been misused so much in our dog training world, but that is true. It's like you have to there's sometimes you have to go to the vet, you have to do these things, but when you're able to and there's an opportunity to, nice to give them some freedom of choice and give them that opportunity to build that confidence and do their own thing, right? That's basically what we're trying to get across. It again doesn't mean that you're just going to say nope. He just likes that. That's what he likes, and that's what he gets to do. That doesn't work because that's not how we live either, right?
right.
Just can't live wild
Don't
and
eat silicone packets. That's bad for you.
yeah, exactly.
That dog.
Yeah. So, yeah. So you can't. You have to be just thoughtful about what you're doing.
So, Denise, to answer your question, this was many, many years ago. We would do different things. There was a rescue organization that would do picnics, and they'd invite all their alums and dogs for adoption, etc., and dogs that were reasonable with other dogs, right? It's different because it was an orchestrated group doing the same thing. Local dog parks are different, and yes, they have to have proof of vaccines and all that. And for that particular, that was an event, so it wasn't necessary. I don't remember, wasn't a paid for event. It was just a gathering, if you will,
Yeah.
and some demonstrations and stuff. But dog parks are different. Yeah, the dogs have autonomy, but the problem is that it's not the same. Like there's yeah, in most cases, an ideal dog park, in my opinion, would have someone there monitoring the dogs and arousal and be able to be like, hey, you need to go. Kind of like the hall monitor or or the lifeguard at the pool, right? Oh, that's dangerous. Get out. Stop running, kids. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think ideally that would be nice. But
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Denise, most of the dogs at the Border Collie Pet had owners.
yes.
Like they were the people were there with their it was the people were there with their dogs, which is true of a dog park, but it was much more orchestrated, and there were rules around who came, what dogs were able to come. At the dog park, there is none.
Right.
They're supposed to be, but nobody adheres to them. And here, there was an organization that was monitoring it and made sure that everything was appropriately set up. So yeah,
Well, it's
yes,
like going to the events. So downtown, this past on Friday, there was an event, rescue organization. It was, you know, it always makes my heart go crazy, especially when there's people with dogs on leash and drinking.
oh my God.
I just did
Right.
that today.
Yeah. I'm like, and they put no retractables. Of course, somebody came with a retractable, and the dogs were greeting, and they got tied up, and I started seeing like a massive dog fight in my head. I go running over there, and then they figured it out. But yeah, I don't
They're like, who's the crazy?
I know who's that crazy lady always monitoring. I'm like, oh, watch
She
your
doesn't even
dog.
have a dog.
I'm like, because I'm too busy watching everyone else's. But no, they always make me super nervous. I'm like, like this the whole time, because I'm like, it's scary. It is
Right.
scary.
Yes.
Yeah, Denise, at a dog park, there is no structure. There's no monitoring. There's none of that. You know what I mean? So it's very, very. It's a much different setup when it's a group that organizes it and can manage it. But yeah, but a dog park, we're not really big on dog parks, as you could probably guess. And the times that our dogs have been able to be in that situation is always because it's been an orchestrated situation. And and our dogs were youngish at that time.
Mhm.
So
They're innocent little beings.
there were we were able to keep track of them because they were all pretty young at that time. So, but yeah, dog parks, definitely not a fan of those. So anyway, so just a little food for thought today, everyone. We just wanted to kind of think about that when you give them a little bit of a choice, because I know I have a little bit of guilt on that with my dogs, because I'm at work a lot, and sometimes there are choices that they're going to sit in my office, which is kind of stinks for them, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So, so when I can, I do my best to be able to allow them and give them the opportunity um, to,
Here's what I found.
oh
Oh
my,
boy,
mind. I don't know.
who
Siri,
wrote that?
Siri was talking to me.
Oh.
Let's
It
not
was like
let's not give
during
her
that,
free reign to tell you what she's sharing on your computer.
like
anyway.
like when we were at Resilient Rainbow,
gosh.
wasn't that? What
Yeah,
was
it was
what
me.
did they say again? You're awesome or something like
Something
that.
that I think it's fun to spend time with you, and I think you're awesome. Like I don't know.
That was excellent timing during a seminar.
I
That
know,
was
that's-
fantastic. Nice work.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, you guys. Thank you all for showing up. We'll see you all next time. Have a great rest of the weekend. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.